What about this class? So there are two ways to use ROS for the purposes of this class. The best way is to install it on your own. The way I have it installed on my laptop right here, all you need is a computer running Ubuntu Linux, and that's it. You can install ROS. You have complete access to everything that ROS has to offer. In the class, there is also an option to use ROS through your web browser, and that is A, if you don't have access to a Linux computer that you can use, and B, for all the class assignments. Right? All the class assignments will be done through this browser-based interface that allows you to run some of ROS, enough to do the homeworks, enough to get, the feeling of ROS and get started with it. But still, the best way is to install ROS on your own computer, and then you have full access. You can play with it. Even if you do that, you still have to do the assignments through the browser-based interface, but you'll get a lot out of it if you decide to run it on your own computer. One very important thing that I want to make clear from the beginning is that in this class, we will not formally teach ROS. This is not a ROS course. This is a robotics course. So all the robotics concepts that we are going to teach will be completely ROS agnostic, right? They're not going to be tied to one specific framework or another. They will just be conceptual, independent, agnostic of the underlying software framework that could be used to implement them, right? And also, we will not teach ROS in a way that would even go against the spirit of open source software, which is meant to be learned, picked up using the documentation, and really by rolling up your sleeves, getting your hands dirty and trying things and failing and then trying again and then reading more of the documentation, posting on answers.ros.org, looking if somebody else has posted your question before. That, in a way, is the open source spirit. So what we will expect you to do is to use the online documentation and the resources and teach yourselves ROS as we progress through the class. The assignments are designed to guide you through some very well-established, accessible parts of ROS. So that will help you have a progression as you learn ROS. But again, you will be expected to learn ROS primarily on your own using the online documentation, which is how most open source projects work in this world. And in general, this ability to pick up a new framework, if it's open source or not, but especially a new open source framework with its documentation, which will have gaps, of course, that you somehow have to fill in. This ability to just pick up something new by teaching yourself from the documentation is something that will be very valuable beyond robotics in general throughout your engineering work. So to begin, as we prepare for our first assignments, this is the starting point, the tutorials for ROS. And in particular, out of the beginner tutorials, you will need to go through the ones mentioned here, 1 through 6 and 11 to 13. As I mentioned, ROS natively supports Python and C++. In this class, our default option is Python. So most of the assignments, the examples that we're going to give, if we ever give skeleton code, all of that will be in Python. However, if you'd rather use C++ to write your own nodes as part of the assignment, that's perfectly fine. Right? You don't have to use our skeleton code. You don't have to use exactly the examples we'll show. ROS is meant for that, right? Based on the documentation, everything we show you how to do in Python, you should be able to also figure out how to do in C++. So if you'd rather use C++, that's perfectly okay. In any case, by the time you're done with these tutorials, this is what you need to be able to do. So set up a workspace, create a package, a software package, compile it if you're using C++, and then publish and subscribe. So these are the nuts and bolts of ROS, and these will already be needed for the very first assignments. So this is the first bit, to go through these tutorials and read them, try them, until you are confident that you can do all of these things right here, and then you'll be ready for the first assignments in the class.